Welcome to episode 6 of Let's Be Frank, a storytelling podcast about an ordinary man that finds himself in extraordinary circumstances. It's also a story where you, the all-important listener, get the opportunity to be one of the fates that directs Frank's actions and decisions. When last we left, Frank was asked by the king to consider the fate of his queen. What will poor Frank do? An all-important listener named Balrog Hunter Z whispered the very thing that Frank needed to hear. So Frank turned to the king, looked him square in the eye and said,
Your Grace, I'm sorry.
What do you feel need to apologize for, my new friend?
Your Grace, remember when your wife said to Lord Grantham, there at the end, she said, why would I bring a plant into my own home knowing that its flames would consume the man I love?
The king's eyes widened for a moment before a dark sadness crept over him.
Guards, escort Lord Grantham to the dungeons.
I am so sorry, my
And
love.
escort my wife to her room. She is to remain there under strict guard until I can decide what to do with him.
My love, I didn't know!
That the flower would burst into flames? You did know. You said as much, and that's how he knows.
The guards led the queen and Lord Grantham from the throne room. Without raising his face, the king gently asked for some time to contemplate what had to be done. Quietly, the group made their way out.
Well, that wasn't what I was expecting.
Getting dark. Mog needs a drink.
With everyone in agreement, they headed back to the Leaky Stein. After their meals and drinks were delivered, almost everyone noticed that Frank hadn't ordered anything.
Are you alright, Frank?
Probably just nerves. Men like me, well, I am used to eating after stressful situations.
Frank just nodded, staring at the table.
You're broke again, huh?
Frank looked up sheepishly, surprised at her comment.
How'd you guess?
Your bulge got smaller.
Pardon?
Excuse me?
Your coin pouch. After getting your suit there, it was considerably larger. Were you robbed?
Oh, Mog need a break.
No. It was supposed to be a robbery, but instead I got the the 6 of them to help me look for unusual things happening in the city.
So you discovered, like us, that it was Lord Grantham.
I mean, yeah, his name came up, but nothing solid came of it. I saw you guys had him when I got back and just assumed the rest.
You paid those men a lot to only come up with a name.
I mean, I gave him the opportunity to be honest men. You know, maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't. Time will tell. However,
Frank's voice trailed off as he looked out of the window of the inn to the park nearby where the marionette show had once been.
I feel like we're missing something important. I also think I may have found it.
What Frank find?
While searching the city, I came across a couple of men preparing to put on a marionette show for the children in the area.
They have people that wander through that do that sort of thing all the time in cities. Fighters, jugglers, bards.
Minstrels, not bards. A minstrel can play an instrument and sing songs others wrote. A bard puts tune to history and creates heroes and monsters.
So what happened, Frank?
Frank reached over and, taking a long drink from Ulrich's mug, began his story.
Yeah, I mean, I was almost compelled to watch the show. I knew I needed to be looking, but something told me to stay and watch. So I did. The story being told was about a king going senile as he gets older. They mocked the poor king with joke after joke until someone came along and took over the kingdom. They placed him in a room with a fake crown, letting him rule over the kingdom of, just his broken mind.
That's a bit dark for a children's story, isn't it?
I don't believe it was primarily aimed at the kids. I feel it was for the adults listening, planting ideas in their heads.
So they would associate their own aging king with the one in the story, especially with the troops marching out and then coming back with no war fought.
That makes a lot of sense.
Maybe we find this puppet person. And
Hold on, guys. There's more.
Ulrich led Frank the rest of his drink, noticing Frank's unease. Taking another drink, Frank took a deep breath and continued.
After it was over, I started to get up and walk away, only I couldn't. The color of the world changed to blue and everything around me ground to a halt, as if he stopped the passing of time.
The group exchanged worried glances with one another as Frank continued.
You see, he knew what we were doing. He knew, but to be honest, he didn't seem too concerned, like he wasn't afraid of us.
Well, he'd better be afraid. I mean, we just helped the king discover a pair of traitors in his midst, and I think that maybe he wasn't counting on that happening.
Everyone in the group began looking around, realizing the people in the inn had stopped what they were doing and were staring at everyone at their table.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Our group's eyes followed the bartender as he walked from behind the bar and over to their table. His movements were stiff and jerky, not fluid as they normally were. He placed his hands on the table and began speaking.
You have proven to be an exceptional group to assist me with the overthrow of this kingdom. But alas, your part in this story is over.
Every adventurer in the Leaky Stein which had a weapon drew them as the group sprang from their seats.
And now I bid you all farewell. I have much to do, and as I told you before, Frank, this is me personally seeing to it I never have to see you again.
Ulrich and Mog immediately drew their weapons.
No, guys. He's controlling them. They're innocent. We can't kill them.
Nodding, the two put their weapons away as Mog made a mad dash for the back door, bowling over multiple patrons in his way.
Now's our chance. Go!
The group fled through the freshly made path provided by Mog and exited out the back door. Mog held the door while Talana sealed the door with her magic.
This will hold until they break the door.
It looks like he's making his move.
True, and if he can control everyone in the inn, I'm certain he can control many in the castle.
Let's split up and split the attackers as well. Mog, you and Frank are with me.
Talana and I will make our way to the east servants' entrance to the castle and try to get in that way.
We go to front door. Go through it if we must.
And so the group split up in two, each taking different paths to the castle, both hoping to get there in time to save the king. Meanwhile, in the throne room, the king sat silently, contemplating everything, when General Hoven entered the room and took a knee before his king.
Your Grace, the soldiers are all squared away now. The livestock are taken care of, and my men have taken over the search for the traitors among our people.
The king sat quiet and unmoving for a minute before raising his tired eyes to the general.
Birnhoven, I have known you since you were barely old enough to carry your father's shield. You always wanted to be a soldier, and here you are, commanding all of my armies before the celebration of your 30th year.
It was through my father's relentless teaching and your patient hand that made me the man I am today.
You're out there, General. You mingle with the people. You hear their words. What I cannot. Tell me, honestly, what do you hear?
The general looked troubled and stared at the floor for a moment.
Do not spare me my pride, General. My skin is thick, and my beliefs are not formed by the opinions of others alone. I need you to be honest.
There are many, Your Grace, that feel that your lack of an heir, and by their words, your indifference towards it publicly, worries them at your advanced age.
The king's expression did not change, so he continued.
They feel that you are not preparing the kingdom for your own mortality.
A legitimate concern, General. However, they need not worry, for I have arrangements should such a circumstance arise.
You do? That would be a relief to many in the kingdom. If I may be so bold, may I ask who it would be?
The king smiled warmly.
It would be you, Birnhoven.
Your Grace, I'm not... I don't know what to say.
Your father was one of my best men, my most trusted friends. Now, you are my best. If I die with heir, I would want you to be my son's or daughter's champion. If I die without heir, I would ask that you take care of our people.
Then I guess it's a good thing this happened when it did.
Meanwhile, Ulrich and Talana were making their way towards the east side of the castle.
Luckily, we can hide in the late market crowds and possibly lose the people hunting us.
I think this was a bad idea.
Slowly, everyone in the market turned their attentions to the two of them.
Run for the iron gates!
Running as fast as they could, they got to the gates to the garden, only to discover them locked.
Damn it!
Hold on. I don't know if this will work or not.
Talana began chanting, and suddenly the world melted away, only for it to reappear as the inside of the great hall leading into the throne room. Ulrich was immediately ill.
What in the seven hells was that?
It was teleport, thankfully.
Thankfully?
I forgot to label the spell. I know it was either that or a spell to skip to a random plane of existence.
How in the hell was he teaching you?
A short distance away, in a nearby construction area, Frank, Joanna, and Mog were heading stealthily to the castle, and upon arriving at the main gate, saw that it was locked and guarded on the outside by 6 soldiers, not the 2 guards that were normally there.
Yeah, he's definitely making his move. Those guys aren't moving like trained soldiers.
Mog agree. The gate is locked. How we get inside?
I mean, we could try to climb over a wall.
Yeah, about that.
Mog no able to climb.
We can go first and send you down some rope and, I don't know.
No, Frank. Mog cannot climb.
Last time we tied ropes to him, and it took all of us to pull him up.
Frank looked around and, seeing everything he needed in the construction area, turned to Mog once more.
So, Mog, buddy, you ever wanted to know what it was like to fly?
Mog too big to pretend to be butterfly. Mog sting like bee, but float like butterfly. No.
Nah, seriously. If I told you, I know of a trick that would help you to fly, would you try it?
Mog nodded his head as Frank sprang into action, moving a very long, sturdy board across a waist-high block wall. Frank instructed Mog to stand on the end closest to the palace. As Mog moved into position, Frank turned to Joanna.
Oh god, are you afraid of heights?
Nope.
Good. Do you think you can climb that tree there, all the way to the top, and jump down onto the other end of this board?
A slightly evil grin crept across Joanna's lips as she nodded and turned to Mog.
Keep your legs stiff, Mog. It'll make it easier to fly.
Climbing the tree quickly, Joanna signaled to Frank that she was ready.
Are you ready to fly, Mog?
With no warning, Joanna leapt from the top of the tree.
Mog no see how this board make Mog
As Joanna's
fly.
feet struck the board, Mog was instantly launched up and over the wall. Way over the wall.
Can you climb up and send me a rope?
On it already.
Within minutes, Frank and Joanna were over the wall to join Mog, who was still sitting where he landed, leaves and twigs tangled in his fur.
Are you all right, Mog?
Ah, man, what happened?
Mog pointed at what appeared to be a bush shaped like a headless animal.
Topiary.
With Mog getting up, they moved quickly toward the main doors as they could hear people of the city converging upon the castle. Moving through the doors, they spotted Talana and Ulrich standing in the main hall.
We made it.
Mog can fly now.
You okay, Ulrich? You look a little green.
I'll be okay. Jarring magical experiment, that's all.
It was a spell, not an experiment.
Were you certain of what you were casting? Then it wasn't a spell, it was an experiment.
We'll have to figure that out later. We have to get to the king before anything bad happens.
Charging down the corridor, the group pushed aside the 2 large doors gaining entrance to the main throne room. The king sat limp and seemingly lifeless upon the throne, his crown upon the head of the general. His second-in-command stood behind him. A large, brooding creature moved forward from the corner, its claws gleaming in the light of the room.
It is our honor to have you as our guests. To be honest, he had hoped that you would meet your fate at the hands of the commoners outside the walls. But since you are here...
Then the puppet master will be entertained before his coronation.
And who are you supposed to be?
Careful, Ulrich. It's the court mage. You worry about the general and his men. This one is mine.
I'll take the general's replacement. Ulrich, you take the general.
Mog will take care of the piggy thing in the corner.
Frank, protect the king.
The group rushed in at once and the battle started. Talana and the archmages fought, setting spell against spell, while Mog hacked and slashed against the creature in the corner. Ulrich had his hands full with the general as Joanna fought against his next in command.
This is not how I planned on spending my evening at dinner.
Mog not planned to fly today, but here we are.
As Frank moved toward the king, his progress was halted by a sudden swirling of power. The room took on a hue of blue as the actions around Frank ground to a halt once more.
Oh, Frank, I had so hoped that you would run, so that I might chase you through the ages, with you living your life with one eye over your shoulder.
The puppet master moved closer to Frank.
Alas, you have decided to end everything early. Oh well.
You know, you talk an awful lot of smack for a guy who's too afraid to get square up without magic.
My boy, I do not fear you.
As suddenly as he was frozen, Frank was able to move once more. He looked to his friends in the midst of combat, each stuck in the eternal struggle to complete their next movement. Frank pulled his sword from his back.
Go ahead, boy. Give me everything you have. Those eyes tell me you have never killed, and I do not think you can now.
Frank hesitated. He was right about that. He had never killed anyone, and normally the thought of hurting someone pained him deeply.
You're right, Puppet Master. I don't think I could stand the thought of killing another human being.
With a wide arcing swing, Frank attacked the puppet master, his sword shattering against the body of the foe before him.
Do you see the inevitability of your situation? I am too powerful for your measly attacks. I cannot even be harmed by a blade not forged in magic.
Suddenly, from across the room, Ulrich turned his head.
Really? Frank, catch.
No one knew that Ulrich's sword protected him from psychic attacks like the puppet master's. With a focused arm, Ulrich hurled his blade to Frank, immediately freezing in that pose once the blade left his hand.
Why are you throwing sharp crap at me?
Catching the hilt, Frank thrust the sword into the body of the puppet master. An explosion of power erupted from the wound, sending magical fire at Frank's arm. The blast sent an unconscious Frank and the sword sliding across the marble floors. The puppet master twisted and winced in agony as the power continued to gush from the wound he could not close.
Supposed to die. Then you easy to destroy.
As the puppet master's explosion began to fade, everyone was able to move once more, though the fight immediately stopped.
What? What's happened?
The general then looked to his king.
Your Grace!
The general ran to him and after checking him, turned to his second in command.
Fetch the healer. Go now. He's still breathing.
In the meantime, everyone else ran to Frank.
Frank Puny Man, speak to us.
Mog shook Frank a few times, trying to wake him.
He's breathing, so that's a good sign.
Look at his hand, though.
Where Frank's hand once held Ulrich's sword, the hand now bore burn patterns, not unlike lightning, coming from the knuckles moving toward his wrist.
We need to get him to a healer as well.
We will take them both. Orc, carry your friend and follow me.
Mog lifted the unconscious Frank as they all headed to the healer. The next day, Ulrich made his way into the inn with Frank in tow.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Yeah. I had some really weird dreams, though.
It's trap.
Mog happy Frank not dead.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
So, we stopped a war, found spies that weren't really spies because they were being controlled by a greater entity, stopped the assassination of the king, and managed to stop the plans of the greater entity and wipe him from existence.
That's a mouthful.
It's the beginning of a great ballad.
So, I guess the only question now is, where do we go from here?
Well, I heard there's a kingdom nearby that everything indicated that the lands were cursed.
We could go to the beach.
And what sort of nefarious activities are happening on a beach?
Not sure. I'll tell you my plans when we get there.
Oh, no, man, come on. We just
Come on,
got through with a life.
We never do anything I don't
encounter.
do.
Come on.
Where chosen one want to go?
Everyone turned to look at Frank. This was a unique moment. No immediate threats on the horizon, and only directions like on a compass to choose from. Frank smiled and said, "Well, what did Frank say?" To be honest, I'm not entirely sure myself. Remember when I told you that you, the all-important listener, would be the steward of poor Frank's fate? Well, you really are. What will Frank do next? You tell us. Please visit letsbefrankthepodcast.com and click on the What Would Frank Do button, and in 500 characters or less, tell us what you think Frank should do next. Also, join us on our Facebook page and tell us the same thing. Remember, you are the fates controlling Frank's fate. Let's try not to let him down. Some of the music and sound effects in this podcast come from Tabletop Audio. If you're running a game, the perfect background music and sound effects can be difficult to assemble and come by. But with Tabletop Audio, you can play songs fitting your campaign and use sword clangs and magical bursts to set the mood for the adventure and take your game to the next level. For your next RPG game, visit tabletopaudio.com. The rest of the music comes from Kevin MacLeod's brilliant website incompetech.com. If you're looking for music for your podcast, Kevin has composed more than 2,000 royalty-free songs released under the Creative Commons license. So when you need music, think incompetech.com and tell him that Frank sent you.